Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. We're looking at the book of Joshua, a book that's teaching us that victory in our Christian experience comes by faith. Faith alone in our Joshua, Jesus Christ, our great high priest, our captain of the host of the armies of heaven. And my friend, you can put your faith and trust in him no matter what you face each day. Every day is a new day, and it brings new challenges. The people of Israel had great victory over Jericho, but then suffered humiliating defeat in chapter 7 at little Ai. And now in chapter 8, they have the opportunity for a new beginning. God gives them a word of encouragement, he gives them a word of instruction, and he tells them how to have the victory over Ai. And that's what we're going to read about, because they get the instructions and they follow them. And in verse 14, now it happened when the king of Ai saw it, that the men of the city hurried and rose early and went out against Israel to battle, he and all his people, and in an appointed place before the plain. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And that was exactly what God told Joshua to do in the previous verses. And Joshua and all Israel made as if they were beaten before them, and they fled by the way of the wilderness. So all the people who were in Ai were called together to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were drawn away from the city. There was not a man left in Ai or Bethel who did not go out after Israel. So they left the city open and pursued Israel. So the Lord said to Joshua, stretch out the spear that is in your hand toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that was in his hand toward the city, and those in the ambush arose quickly out of their place, and they ran as soon as he had stretched out his hand, and they entered the city, took it, and hurried to set the city on fire. And so you see the picture. They drew the people out of the city with their running away, just like the first time, and now Joshua holds up his sword. Remember, just like Moses held up his hands to give Joshua the victory over Amalek, and now he does the same here. He holds up his sword, and the men of Ai looked behind him, and they saw, and behold, the smoke of the city ascended to heaven, so they had no power to flee this way or that way, and the people who fled to the wilderness turned back on the pursuers. Now when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city, and that the smoke of the city ascended, they turned back and struck down the men of Ai. Then the others came out of the city against them, so they were caught up in the midst of Israel, some on this side, some on that side, and they struck them down so that they let none of them remain or escape. But the king of Ai they took alive and brought him to Joshua. And it came to pass when Israel had made an end of slaying all the inhabitants of Ai in the field, in the wilderness where they pursued them, and where they had fallen by the edge of the sword, until they were consumed, that all the Israelites returned to Ai and struck it with the edge of the sword. And so it was, all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not draw back his hand with which he stretched out the spear until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants. And only the livestock and the spoil of the city Israel took as booty for themselves, according to the word of the Lord, which he commanded Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai, made it a heap forever, a desolation to this day. And the king of Ai he hung on a tree until evening. And as soon as the sun was down, Joshua commanded that they would take his corpse down from the tree, cast it in the entrance of the gate of the city, and raise over it a great heap of stones that remains to this day. And so in chapter 7, they raised a heap of stones over the grave, over the bodies of Achan and his family, reminding them of the sin that brought the defeat. Now they raise a heap of stones, signifying God gave the victory when Israel, by faith, followed God's instructions and did exactly what God told him to do. And even in the midst of the battle, God was speaking to Joshua to raise his spear. And when he did, the people had great victory. Oh, there's always great victory, new victory, no matter what defeat, mistakes we might make in our life, when we put our faith and trust in the instructions that God gives us by faith. Well, God bless you. and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.